So, a very warm welcome to the You Are the Creative podcast with your host, Angie Littenoff, and my beautiful guest and friend, Trish Whelan, as part of the new Sacred and Divine season. And Trish is a multi-dimensional energy healing therapist who teaches Shamanic, Kundalini Yoga, and Reiki, alongside leading healing retreats and programs and workshops around the world. And Trish has been practicing the healing arts for over 20 years and set up Soul Adventures in 2006 when she released a record designed to support energy healing therapies. Trish has been teaching Kundalini Yoga and hosting retreats since 2013. And in February 2024, Trish opened the School of Shamanic Kundalini Yoga and Healing Arts and will present the first 200-hour Shamanic Kundalini Yoga teacher training starting in May of this year. So healing is absolutely my main focus, she says, and I work with an open heart to facilitate helping people to heal themselves, to embrace life and move further along their own path to happiness, harmony, joy, and love. So, and that's beautiful. So thank you for joining us, Trish.
Hello, Angie. How are you? Lovely to see you.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you back. And I just want to share a little bit before we hear from you, which is basically just to get it off my system. Just to get it out of my system, is I attended one of your workshops, Trish, recently, and it was a really beautiful, immersive 3-hour journey. So I'd love to know more about kind of, your inspiration behind creating such a complete experience for people as well, if we've got, opportunity to hear that from you. And yeah, so yeah, just to share a little bit about that. It's just absolutely beautiful. I'm still feeling the benefits of that this week. So it's been really gorgeous to look back on. And
treat to see you twice in a week, Angie.
Yeah, no, it's been great. So I want to just know really about where you are at the moment. I mean, you've had a very busy time facilitating retreats, and I know that you hold some beautiful ones kind of worldwide. So can you kind of sort of give us a little insight into kind of where you're at the moment, maybe a snippet about your journey, because we've obviously had you here before, but for those of us who are joining us for the first time, just a little bit about you and, where you're at this moment in time.
Well, I'm back in Menorca at my house in the hills here. I've been... so I saw you last Saturday in London for the spring equinox workshop. And so, in relation to that question about the inspiration for that, I guess, really, I love to work with the medicine wheel and I love to work with the turning of the year. And I love to really honor those big dates. So it was just a nice... It was a nice experience to be in London, the day after the equinox. And I find those days to be so powerful and so potent, really, especially, now coming into the spring and all of the newness that, we're all experiencing. And so that journey, really, that 3 hours was... Yes, a weave. I really like to work with this weave of the Shamanic Kundalini Yoga with the breath work, and then sort of glide into a really nice deep nidra and then close with the gong. So that I just feel like that weave together, the parts of the yoga practice can be quite challenging. Some of it can be quite demanding, even if it's not really fierce. I do a lot of shaking myself in my life, and I have a shaking experience in all of my classes. And just a really nice way to for people to really open the doors to their own self-healing. You know, the breaths were really simple. You know, just, it's all very simple, really, you know, with just some space around it for people to really feel their own energy, to feel their own energy moving, to feel their feelings, to release, to really consider their intentions, to become embodied, and to move into, you know, once we move all that energy with the yoga, then we can really come into a very deep liminal healing space with the nidra, and people have strong experiences there. So yeah, that was the workshop on Saturday, and I was on my way back from giving a retreat in Sri Lanka called Vibrate at Your Highest Frequency, which is working on a chakra a day for 7 days and eating to support that chakra. And I've been presenting that program since 2013. And as taught by your very wonderful self, that really, I guess, you set me off on that path, really, Angie, of working with the chakras. And, you know, no matter what I've added on to my toolkit, I always really, everything always comes back to the chakras for me, actually. So yeah, so I've been doing that, and now I'm back. I'm back at home in Menorca, and I'm writing the syllabus for my Shamanic Kundalini Yoga teacher training that starts in May. And that's just so exciting because it feels so expansive, and it also feels so free. And I also feel like there's so much to, you know, there's so much to share. I think that's going to be the most challenging bit, is going to be the editing, really, because, you know, otherwise we're going to be, you know, up till midnight every night trying to like pour it. It's just come pouring out of me, really. So I'm very, 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 very excited about that. And it just feels like the time is really now, you know, the time is really now for us all to really be stepping up and stepping into our destinies. I just really follow a lot of astrology, and yeah, it's really like a wild time to be alive. There's a lot going on for a lot of people, and this moving into the new age, this, you know, now we're in it, and yeah, you know, it's two-sided, isn't it? You know, there's a lot of darkness, but there's an incredible amount of light also. So yeah, I'm excited I'm here in the hills, and I'm excited to be alive.
So there's, you know, I mean, there's a lot of, very excited for you about the training that you're offering, which is very unique offering, bringing together such a richness of wisdom. You know, knowing that the solid background in yoga and shamanism that you have, and all the, you know, the practices in the Kundalini Yoga and in your lineage there, and bringing those aspects, you know, together, are just very, very rich and strong. So I'm really feeling that for you, and hugely excited for your students as well. And and you know, knowing you for so long now, it seems like, you know, I kind of feel like I'm asking this for everyone else, really, in some ways. But in terms of your relationship to the sacred and the divine, I feel like you embody so much within your life and work. But would you like to share with us and tell us a little bit about what they mean to you?
Oh, I was very excited when you said there's a theme to our conversation. And I suppose, yeah, I mean, I wonder, is there really a difference between the sacred and the divine? You know, what's sacred is divine and what's divine is sacred to me, really. I guess, you know, I love an expression called walk like a prayer. And I believe that when we walk like a prayer and move like a prayer, we're really in this resonance of the sacred, basically. And, you know, life is, every breath is sacred. And, you know, the earth is sacred. If we, you know, if we are able to look at and feel everything as sacred, I mean, the world would be, you know, a much more beautiful place, because, you know, what is sacred is everywhere around us, but really it's inside. And I suppose I was really thinking about, you know, that connection that to me feels the most important with the divine is, you know, getting on my mat every morning and meeting myself there, basically, and remembering that I am sacred. And, you know, it's an experiential situation, isn't it, really? You know, I think I was you know, brought up as a Irish Catholic, and what was deemed as sacred, and, you know, obviously, particularly in Ireland, every house and nearly every room in every house has a sacred heart. And, you know, I grew up with the Sacred Heart light in my room, but there was definitely a separation from, you know, going into the sacred place and going into the church and then coming out of the, you know, like, you know, the I guess maybe the motivations weren't so sacred. You know, it was like, who's got the nicest outfit on at mass, and it was very different to my intelligence of the divine and the sacred inside myself now. It was interesting that to have this conversation, I would normally have a conversation like this in my lounge, but because it was about the sacred and divine, I felt like I should come into my yoga room, because when I come into my yoga room, it's definitely feels sacred and divine in here. So the divine, I believe, is, you know, for me, I would say it's the nature, you know, it's the elements, it's being out in the, you know, I live in this natural park here in Menorca, and you know, to me, this is the most divine place I've ever been in my life, because it's just, it's pure, unspoiled, natural beauty. So I suppose the theme of beauty really comes up when we consider what is sacred and what is divine, because it's beauty, isn't it? And it's really walking in beauty. And for me, that's obviously the shamanic path. And, you know, looking at other people as sacred and divine, seeing souls as opposed to, you know, seeing neurosis or seeing pain, you know, like really seeing behind the pain of people and seeing their sacred nature and their divine nature just changes everything in how we approach situations. And of course, you know, that's not always possible for us, is it? We're also human beings, but endeavoring to resonate at the frequency of the sacred and the divine really works with the uplifting of the spirit. So in my life, you know, it's every day, you know, being grateful and thankful for waking up and having the absolute honor to be alive for another day. And then, you know, having a decaf and then getting on my yoga mat and shutting down my eyes and finding that connection inside. And then that, you know, carries on into, you know, hopefully, you know, all of my interactions. and endeavoring to operate from that foundation of honoring the work that comes through me as sacred and divine, because obviously it's not me. So, giving thanks and being grateful for what comes through. And hopefully that is also beautiful.
So the way that you've described it as well is very much about the connection that we can make on a regular basis. So two things there. One is that with my own experience, I know it to be cumulative. So I know that once you start a morning ritual and you build on that, a 1 week later, 1 year later, 5 years later, it's growing, and it's growing in its ability to support you, right? But the before that comes in, and I think really interesting for people listening is, how can we start? How can one begin that process that you describe, which for you involves sort of being on your mat and closing your eyes and really being at one with who you are, in order to connect to the sacred, with all the things that distract us and take us away from that? From your experience, what would you suggest might be a way to begin, a good way to begin?
Well, I think that I know that there's a commitment involved. So, having the understanding and the realization that something's got to change, and then making a commitment to yourself, and deciding. I work a lot with the 40-day concept, that it takes 40 days to make a change, basically. And, I always encourage people to start a 40-day practice, whether that's 3 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, 20 minutes, it doesn't really matter. It's the commitment to doing that action every single day for 40 days that is so potent. And so, not saying, oh, great, I'm going to start an hour-long practice for 40 days and then absolutely hating it and it's not feasible. It's like, it doesn't really matter. Maybe it's a 5-minute practice that it starts off to start off, but what happens in that 40 days and the changing in the energy and, the discipline, they say, in the discipline is the devotion. And, in order to really connect to the sacred and the divine, there has to be a devotion. And really the devotion starts off with a devotion to your intention and a devotion to yourself of like, okay, I'm going to X, Y, or Z this every day for 40 days, and then see what happens and see how I feel at the end. And, your biochemistry changes, if it's just taking hold of your nervous system, how can you help yourself? How can you get out of your own way, basically? So I would say, deciding to start a practice and then putting the 40 days into practice, because, across so many cultures and religions, 40 days was really potent, Lent, Ramadan, a lot can happen in 40 days. And it just makes it, there's more of a determination, because, day 1, you feel amazing, I started it, and day 2, you feel good. And then maybe day 3, you're like, oh, I want to stay in bed, or oh, I'm too busy, or I've got to check my emails or whatever. But once you get to like day 8, you're never going to stop. I mean, you don't get to day 27 and think, oh, I'm not bothered now, I'm going to leave this.
Yeah.
So in that dedication to yourself, there is a rising spirit. And you just feel so good, like, why would you not do that then? Why would you not do something that could really help yourself? And even if that's just a 3-minute breath that you sit down for, take a few deep breaths, tune in, welcome the new day, and do 3 minutes of breath work, you're going to feel better. And what happens when we shut down our eyes and really, realize who's inside in that moment, that morning. And also, it doesn't get easier, it doesn't necessarily get easier. Sometimes it does, but how you feel at the end, that feel, the sort of the victorious feeling is really so soul nourishing. So yeah, I would say, that's something I bang on about a lot, I guess. But honestly, I see the difference,
So what it means to that individual, for example, imagine if it's been a very long time, or it's the very first time that somebody decides to create the space to honor themselves, and that very deed, actually that intention, which is something I work with very a lot, like every day in my own work as well. So I just love it, and to hear you say the role of intention in what we're doing, that sense of growing that connection, but also what that really involves and symbolizes and represents, clearing the space to engage fully with life, with with ourselves, with stepping into that place of being fully present, and at times having that place at which kind of everything melts away, right? It's so potent, that and strong and clear. So I think that when you describe it, it very much reminds me of you sort of get the taste for something, don't you? So that sense of like what you're saying, that day 27, there's no you're a different human by then, and that sense of that once you've claimed that for yourself, right? That you are aware of what it's doing on so many different levels. So for people who are busy or burnt out, or have given so much and maybe given too much, and maybe realigning the priorities in their lives.
It's a reclamation, isn't it? And it's how badly do you want to feel better? I mean, is feeling better worth getting out of bed 10 minutes earlier every day? Yes. I mean, that's it's not a yes or no answer. The answer is only yes. You never feel worse for making a commitment to yourself. And I just feel really now, I honestly, I struggle to really understand how anybody is alive at the moment and not really using that resource that they have inside themselves to help them manage what is ahead in their day. And all of the EMFs and all of this, the there's so much going on in this shift. And there's so much going on in how affected we are by the external stimulus of Wi-Fi and broadband, and all of the amazing things that are allowing us to have this conversation together now. There's a pros and cons to it, So mitigating the, you know, levels of stress that the body is under from text messages, WhatsApps, DMs, you know, like all of that information flooding in, you know, our systems really, you know, across the board are struggling to be able to cope with all of this. And we can, but we can, you know, actually manage it much better if we can actually just remember that, you know, the biggest hard drive is inside, really, you know, the big computers inside of ourselves. And, you know, then, and that's really our soul. And when we can have a moment every day, however long for, to tune into our soul and to that GPS of our soul, then, you know, that is where we can come into a deeper contact with the sacred and the sacred.
That you know, that sort of instant, so the assumption that we have to respond instantly to something, like, you know, reply to people on a message or whatever. It's that kind of high alert state, isn't it? Whereas so sort of with that in mind, and what you're speaking about, I'd love to hear your thoughts a little bit about how, well, once we've set the scene for ourselves, right? We've created this opportunity for daily practice, be it, as say, for 3 minutes or, you know, 3 hours or whatever it is that you're drawn to do. And then, so we've got this opportunity to really claim this for ourselves. So I'd love to hear from you a little bit about the role. I know this is a massive conversation. But I just can't help myself. That the way that you know, as you step into that, what the sacral chakra then facilitates, or our connection with the sacral chakra, can you tell us a bit more about the relationship that you know, that things like what can happen basically as we engage with, one, the opportunity to create, and two, really intentionally connect with the sacral?
Well, I would say that it's about connecting to all of the chakras. Obviously the sacral, you know, we're sitting into this, the throne of our bones here in the sacrum. And well, you know, it's about it's about embodiment, really. It's about bringing the energy of the divine down through the upper triangle into the heart, down through the navel and into the sacrum. But I would say that for me personally, I would say that, you know, to really tune into, I mean, to consider how long people have, and then how do they feel, to really consider what their practice would be. So if somebody was feeling, you know, very much in their head, then I would say some dancing, some shaking, you know, more root chakra. If somebody's feeling very, you know, insecure, or, you know, if they're unable to bring their energy up, then I would say, you know, some high oxygen breathing to really move the energy through. And I feel like, to really, you know, to be connecting to the earth, obviously with the sacrum connecting to the water, working with all of the organs there, the water works. But yeah, I would say for me, it would definitely be more about, you know, like tuning into where there is, you know, not enough energy or too much energy, and trying to balance that out, really. And I suppose I would always more lean into the heart, you know, that's my little, you know, that's my favorite thing to do, to really, you know, start off at the heart myself. So, yeah, I mean, it just, whatever the practice is, it's really about bringing the energy into the field and into the body and into the cells, into the chakras. And I suppose really working, you know, being able to, if people can shut the eyes down, then of course what happens is this really beautiful activation third eye, and people can really start to live more intuitively. You know, if they're, you know, our third eyes are so bombarded, aren't they, with all of this, you know, the stress that we're under. So if we just can just close the eyes down, and it's like there's a whole other world in there, and that whole other world is calmer, and you know, that's where the connection really is. When we can shut down, we have to shut down the eyes really to make that connection.
Mm. And in light of your own experience, how do you feel about your own evolving connection to your own divinity?
Oh, I just feel really excited because I just feel like it's magic that, you know, in like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I am able to change how I feel. I'm able to connect. I'm able to forget about all of the things, you know. I mean, in terms of my own journey, I just was at a very stressful time in my life when I was practicing a lot of Kundalini Yoga. And I would go to Kundalini Yoga and I would completely forget within 3 minutes of all the things. And I would often end up doing yoga and going back to the office actually, and kind of with a different, observing how different I felt after I did the yoga. And that's what made me want to be a Kundalini yoga teacher in the first place, because you can just have a practice or go to a Kundalini class, or, you know, practice online. I have loads of free classes on my website. You can just tune in, plug in, and you can forget all of that. You can transport yourself to somewhere that is sacred and divine. And for however long you're able to take that time out, you can have that experience. And so I feel really excited because I know that, you know, the clarity, the inspiration, the happiness. There's such a feeling of happiness, and there's a feeling of stillness, and there's a feeling of deep connection that comes. And you know, I did a 90-day practice myself before I went away, and obviously I do a lot of yoga every day. And you know, there was 2 days when I was away that were travel days that I didn't get to practice, and everything just feels different when I don't practice. So you know, I had to really come back to some breath work. It just really is such a leveler for me, and I just love how I feel, you know, like I want to feel aligned, and I want to feel well, and I want to feel happy, and I want to feel like, you know, I am worth that time, basically. So yeah, I feel excited.
And how can people find you and get hold of you, Trish?
My website is souladventures.co.uk, and I'm Soul Adventures on Instagram and on Facebook. Yeah, and then on my website there's lots of there's some complimentary nidras, there's lots of complimentary classes, workshops, breaths. So it's worth having a little look around on the website. And then yeah, obviously I have my I'm actually in the UK in July at 42 Acres for my next retreat. And there's a couple of spaces open for that. And that I really look forward to, because obviously the whole Glastonbury and just being in Somerset, it's really, I love that. I love it there. So yeah, so everything's on the website basically.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for today. It's been
Thanks for
really
having me back, Angie.
have you back in circle.
Yes.
It's beautiful. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. See you soon.